Okay, and go ahead, Sabrina.
I have something I want to talk to you about.
Okay, we're broadcasting.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sabrina.
well, no, if we're broadcasting right now. It's a legal thing.
Okay, well, you want to wait till afterwards or now?
Well, I don't need anyone else to hear it.
Okay, we have to wait till afterward because we on Facebook and stuff now.
Okay.
Okay, guys, can everybody hear me on YouTube and stuff too? No echo, right? The echo should be gone. Let me test myself. Testing. Okay, guys, can everybody hear me? It's gone. Okay. Oh, okay, everybody, inshallah, should hear me. Okay, let's get started here. Inna alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to another session of our series entitled Get to Know Allah. And before we go into our class for today, I'd like to remind everyone, don't forget that tonight at 9 p.m., we have the call-in Q&A show, whereas you can call in and ask me your questions about Islam. That will be tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and make sure that everyone has that dial-up number available. In fact, let me put the advertisement up too, just so everybody can see. There it is. That would be the call in and ask Sister Layla Live. That's tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But for now, we're going to go into our class on Get to Know Your Lord. And this is all taken from the book written by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid. And alhamdulillah, he just released another book. And that the book that he just released, I'm going to do that book too. You know, in addition to this series, this is a 3-series book on how to the correct belief system of the Muslim. And then he just released, he was saying, another book, the one I've been waiting for, which helps to explain a couple of surahs of the Quran, which really go into detail about the battle of Badr and the battle of Uhud. You know, that's the history of Islam, which is so important for Muslims to learn. I'm going to be teaching that class of his too. But for right now, this book, he's breaking down in this book what it means to believe in Allah. He spoke about allegiance, how Islam entails, first of all, having allegiance to Allah, allegiance to the Prophet, and allegiance to the Muslims. And this is where we fall short as Muslims. This is why so many Muslims today are celebrating holidays, celebrating celebrations that we shouldn't. And it's not so much a matter of whether or not certain holidays are haram. For example, Thanksgiving, the American holiday known as Thanksgiving. There's nothing in Islam that forbids us from thanking Allah for the good things that we have. In fact, Islam encourages us to thank Allah for the good things that he's given us. Another example of such a holiday would be Mother's Day. There's nothing in Islam that says it's haram, you know, to pay homage to your mother. In fact, it's something that Islam requires. So these type of issues are not matters of lawful and unlawful, but instead they're matters of allegiance, having allegiance to Allah, having allegiance to the believers. You know, if you got allegiance to the believers, then why would you participate in non-believing holidays? Okay, so that's an example as to how it's important to understand that our belief system is based on having allegiance to Allah, allegiance to his prophet, and allegiance to the believers, then we wouldn't think to participate in such a holiday. Even though these issues are not haram, why would I want to do that when it doesn't belong to me and mine? Okay, so that's what this book helps to explain how the allegiance of so many of us is misplaced. And also this book has broken down the meaning of belief in Allah. What does it mean? We believe in his book, we believe in his angels, we believe in his decree, and that this is where a lot of Muslims fall short. We claim to believe in Allah, but we don't believe in his decree. You know, we don't believe what Allah has told us about the Qadr. You know, we believe that we can change our destiny. That's one big problem. You cannot change your destiny. You know, a lot of Muslims believe that there are certain things we can do, such as making supplication, that our dua changes our destiny. Your dua does not change your destiny either. Instead, your supplication or your dua is part of your decree, but people don't understand that. You know, we talked about how belief in Allah entails believing everything that he's told us. For example, he's told us that he's the creator of everything, good and evil. There's a lot of Muslims that don't believe that. They believe that Allah is the creator of good, but they deny that he's the creator of evil. And this contradicts belief in him. You know, we talked about then what we're speaking about now are his names. You know, you want to know about Allah. You want to learn about Allah. The way to know about Allah is by learning his names. Learning his names teaches you of him. And we've spoken about how when it comes to Allah's names, there are certain rules that we have to adhere to. For example, some of his names can also be attributes of him. But it's not the same in regards to his attributes. An attribute cannot be taken as a name unless he gave it to himself. And this is where we fall short as Muslims. And we gave examples of that. For example, how Allah has different attributes. Some of his attributes deal with show his actions, help describe his actions. And some of his attributes describe himself. My question to you today is, who can give me some examples of attributes that Allah uses to describe himself? Anyone, take the mic. What are some examples of an attribute that Allah uses to describe himself or to tell us of himself? Put it that way. Anyone? And let's see, for those of you on YouTube and social media, type your answers too. For people on Facebook, go ahead. On Zoom, go ahead, Lucy.
Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
What about that? Listen to the question. Give me an example of an attribute that Allah uses to describe himself. That's the question.
What the Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim is describing how he's merciful and to us.
Okay, she's saying, okay, so what is the attribute? Say it in English, in other words. What are you saying? Explain what you're saying. Give me an example of an attribute that Allah uses to describe himself. So what would you say? Well, one of Allah's attributes that describes himself is Is what? Lucy? Okay, anybody else? Since she's lost. We get lost in Arabic when we don't even speak it. I don't understand.
I'm sorry, just people on my phone are getting on my nerves.
Oh.
It describes, it's saying that he's merciful by
Okay, but what's
letting
the
us.
attribute? What? Give me an example of an attribute. What's the attribute you're using of Allah that describes him? Anybody else want to start this off? She's confused.
So, Sister Layla, can I try as far
Yes.
as Allah's attributes, as far as in the most loving? So Allah is loving, he's the most, so that's an attribute
Great.
because Allah is loving. Okay.
Now, do
Loving
you
the
hear
people.
how she answered the question, Lucy? I want an attribute that describes that Allah used to describe himself. Her attribute is loving. Loving is an attribute of Allah. Loving is an adjective, which is an attribute of Allah. Allah is the most loving. So that's an example of an attribute that describes Allah's self. Who can give me another example of an attribute? And attributes are adjectives in the English language. Give me another example of an attribute that Allah uses to describe himself. Go ahead, Zarina.
The law says that he has no one like him. There's no one like him. And so he is unique. He is one.
You're basically using a name. Okay, listen to the question. I want an attribute, not a name of Allah. See, you just gave me one of Allah's names. I want an attribute that Allah uses to describe himself, like loving. Allah loves. Love is an attribute. It's not a name of Allah. It's an attribute that describes Allah. Who can give me another attribute that describes Allah's self, not a name? Go ahead, Fardowsa.
I'm actually answering instead of my mom.
Okay, go ahead, Hamza.
He's the most merciful.
Okay, so the attribute that you're using is what? Mercy. That's what Lucy was trying to say. Lucy and Hamza, the attribute is mercy. Mercy is not only a name of Allah, but it is also an attribute that describes himself. So if you're going to use that and I say, what's the attribute, you would say mercy. You got it now? Good job, Hamza. You got it, Lucy? So your answer should have been mercy. Otherwise, you were doing like Zarina, using a name. I don't want a name of Allah. I want an attribute that describes Allah's self. Love is an attribute that describes the essence of Allah. Mercy is an attribute that describes the essence of Allah. Who can give me another one? Okay, hold on. Here's a good one on Facebook from Sister Sarah. Sarah said, not in need of sleep, never becomes tired. Good job, Sarah. That is an attribute that describes the essence of Allah, the one who never is in need of sleep, sleepless. I would say sleepless. That's an adjective or an attribute that describes the nature of Allah. Good job, Sarah. Who can give me another example of an attribute? And do you guys see why, as Muslims, You can be Muslim for 1,000,000 years and still your Aqidah is not correct because you don't understand these names and attributes. That's why we will never get tired of teaching this. That's why all of my Tawheed classes are going to focus on this, because you guys can never get it until you get it right. Okay, Samira, give me another example of an attribute that describes the nature. Because remember, we said attributes fall in two categories. Some describe Allah's self, and I want the ones that's describing himself, which is his nature, such as sleepless, such as mercy, such as loving, such as what else, Samira? Give me another example. Samira, we can't hear you.
And that's just.
Huh? Go ahead.
I'm gonna type it.
Or if she types it, I ain't gonna be able to see it. So, okay, you can type it. Somebody read it. Just, is that what you put on the screen? Just, okay. That's a great answer. Good job, Samira. Another attribute that describes the nature or essence or self of Allah is just. He's just. Good job. He's just. That's also a name too, but she used it as an attribute. Good job. Okay, who else at the bottom? Who else got an example? Good job, Metro lady. Wait a minute, here's another one from Sarah. Sarah's on the road. Another attribute describing the nature of Allah is he is in control. Hello, mashallah. Sarah understands the names and attributes. She's been coming to my classes for over 25 years. And so she's got it. Sarah can teach this class because she's one of my old original students, and she knows her Aqidah is correct. As she said, a great example of Allah's, of an attribute describing the nature of Allah or the essence of Allah is he's in control of everything. That ain't no name. See how she's given the best answers because she's given attributes that you can't make a name out of. Hello, that's my girl. Okay, another example. Let's see what else we got on Facebook and YouTube. Okay, so Sakina, she said another example of an attribute. Now I want all of y'all to listen on Zoom so y'all can get it. Another attribute that describes the nature or the essence of Allah is his coming. Mashallah, that is not a name either. That's an attribute that falls in the first category of defining the essence of Allah, his coming. Even though he will only come on the day of judgment, still, that's an attribute of his. Good job, Sakina. Let's see. I think my girls got it here on YouTube and Facebook. Let's see what else we got here. Good job, Pamela. Pamela put a great answer. His patience. This is also an example of the essence of Allah. That's one of his names too, but she's using it as an attribute. He's patient, forever patient. That describes the nature or the essence of Allah. Good job. Let's see what else we got on. Let's keep it on YouTube. What is this Brother Ahmad wrote? Brother Ahmad, that's really, you're really giving me his names. I don't want to, even though you're right, his sing. The fact that Allah can see, what I would word that is by saying, because you're wording it as a name, Allah can see. That's an attribute that describes his nature. He can see. Good job. He can see. What else? The other answer you gave is a name. I want an attribute. Okay, Jamila, what do you mean by he is everywhere? Now this, look at Jamila's answer on YouTube. Let me put it here so y'all can see it on the screen. This is an example of how we have to be careful with the wording. This is how we have to be careful with the wording. Remember, we talked about when it comes to Allah's attributes, we have to word it the way he words himself. Does Allah say he's everywhere? Do you see the problem with your answer, Jamila? Is Allah everywhere? This is how we can tell the Mu'tazila from the people of the Sunnah, because the Mu'tazila believe he's everywhere. Some famous speakers that you guys know of were exposed through this concept when they were asked to give an attribute describing the nature of Allah. They said he's everywhere. That's how we knew these people were not scholars, because a scholar would never say that. That is not how he describes himself. So this is one example. Thank you for that answer, even though your answer is wrong. Thank you for that answer, Jamila, because this is something, a great example of how we have to be careful when it comes to his attributes. They must be described as he uses them. We use them as he never says he's everywhere. There is nothing from the Quran nor the Sunnah where Allah says he's everywhere. So that's wrong. Let's see, what else? Any other examples? Let's see, Zarina.
Can you say,
Oh, yeah, let's go to the people that ain't answered yet. Who was that that got on the mic without raising their hand? Big Mouth Shamsa. Go ahead, Shamsa.
I'm sorry. I was saying he is the all-knowing.
Is that a name or an attribute?
Oh, that's the name. Well, I guess I can say no.
Okay, I want an attribute describing the nature or the essence or the self of Allah. Who is the other person that got on the mic? Go ahead again on that other person. Zarina,
that
go
was
ahead.
me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mina.
I was saying often forgiving. Like he forgives. That would be an attribute because he forgives
Okay,
your
yeah.
sins.
But don't
Would that
put
be considered?
often in it, because if you say
Okay.
often, what are you doing?
Okay, so to say often,
Yeah,
especially, he does
But
sometimes.
that's an example of how some of the names are attributes too. But I want y'all to get away from the names and
Okay.
I want you people on Zoom to do what Sarah and Sakina and and Metro Lady and them are doing on Facebook. They're giving attributes that you cannot ascribe as a name. I want y'all to think outside the box. Y'all, a lot of y'all were born Muslims, been Muslims all your lives. Y'all got to think outside the box. Don't give convert answers. Do like Sarah and them, outside the box. Okay, go ahead, Sabrine. You got one? Go ahead. Okay, well, until she gets her mic on, go ahead for Zarina.
Allah is not, he was not reproduced. He does not
Okay, here you
reproduce,
go with
and
the
he
names. You
does
going
not
with
have
those
children.
names? Nope. Give me an attribute that describes the nature of Allah. You're going into names with, if you got to make it, I can tell you how you can tell if it's just a name. If you got to go into a long sentence, an attribute is just, attribute, loving, attribute, mercy, attribute, sleepless,
Forgiveness.
attribute, So, think of an attribute. Let's get back.
Forgiveness.
We are, no. Sabrine, go ahead.
One who subdues.
You just gave a nice name. Thank you. Okay, I want an attribute that
Okay.
describes, the people on Zoom, y'all got to work at it. An attribute that describes the essence of Allah. Fardelsa, you going to try again? You and Hamza, go ahead. Hamza probably get it because the kids always get it. Go ahead, Hamza.
Allah is never lonely.
See how the children get it? That's why you can ask a child below the age of puberty, where's Allah? They say up there, the fitra. They children are born upon the fitra. They're born believing in Allah. Loneliness. He doesn't experience loneliness. That is not a name. The rest of y'all got to think like that outside the box. An attribute, perfect, Hamza, an attribute describing the nature of Allah is he never gets lonely. Unless it's a sentence like that, Zarina, don't waste your time. Okay.
I said he doesn't reproduce like children. That's what he says about himself in the
But
Quran.
that's not really something that,
Okay.
no. He
Okay.
has to also be something that he says of himself.
Yeah, and Surah Ikhlas that he does not
Okay, well, I
beget,
want you
nor
to
was
do
he
better.
begotten.
I want you to do better. That's too much. You getting too much on the names. If you can go to Surah Ikhlas, that means it's a name. That's how we determine his names from those surahs. I want an attribute. I want you to think outside the box like that child did. Something that nobody can confuse as being a name. Anybody else? Oh God, here's a great one. Look at my people on YouTube. Outside the box, Zarina. The sins. You ain't gonna find that in Surah Ikhlas. The sins. What does that mean? You find it in the Hadith. He comes down every night during the last third of the night. Good job, Sakina. You can teach this class too. MashaAllah. Look at these answers. And MashaAllah. And the kids. Okay. Pamela, that's an example of one, but that's more on his names. I want you to think outside the box too. She said sufficient. Yes, but that's too much on a name. I want you to do like Sakina and do like Hamza and do like Sarah. Get out that box. Okay. Brother Amma, try it again too. You too much in the box. You got them names. Okay.
Did I say purify or purification?
Where are you getting your stuff from? Where does Allah speak about purification? I want you to give me an attribute of Allah, not of his creation. What does that do have to relate to Allah? I want something that relates to Allah. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. You guys have to work on it. MashaAllah, Sarah's been doing this for 25 years. MashaAllah, I'm proud of you, Sarah. Sakina, proud of you, Sakina. Rest of y'all work on it. So that's the first category of attributes. Attributes that Allah gives us of himself that describes the nature of himself. Just, never goes to sleep, never gets tired. Okay, I'm looking at these other answers. Descends, good job. The one who descends, he comes, good job. He'll be coming around the mountain on the day of judgment. Yeah, coming around the mountain. There you go. I like that one. That's how I remember that. When I was a kid, I remember Mukhtar's father, when he was teaching us about the names and attributes of Allah. And I thought it sounded funny when you say he's coming. What does that mean? Then I start thinking, I'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. So I would make up a rhyme in my mind to remember these names and attributes. And I would always say, coming around the mountain, day of judgment. And I would do that. That's how I remember that one. That's why I laughed when you mentioned that, because I said that took me back. Okay, what about that now? Can you say that Allah is majestic, Mina? Yeah, we can say that. But is that an attribute or is that a name?
The reason why I said that is because like Allah is more powerful. So
Yeah, but I
that
want
would
to
be
know,
an
is that
attribute.
a name or an attribute? That
Name.
is one of Allah's biggest names. He's the majestic. I don't want a name. I want
Okay.
attributes.
Okay.
Some of his names are attributes, but I don't want y'all to give me names. I wanted y'all to give me attributes, not names.
Yeah, I thought that was
A
an
lot of
attribute.
his names are attributes. And we talked about that the other day. A lot of Allah's names are attributes, but he also has attributes that are not names that we cannot use as a name. That's what the Muslims don't get. Y'all got to be able to break down and tell me attributes like these sisters did on YouTube. Attributes that can never be used as a name. That's what I want from y'all. Y'all took the easy way. I want the hard way. Okay, then that's the first type of attributes. The second category of attributes are attributes that do what, guys? The first category are attributes that describes the essence of Allah. What's the second category? Anybody remember? My Sarah does. Anybody else remember? Sarah, you need to be teaching in here. The second category of attributes are attributes that describe his actions. Remember that yesterday? Attributes. Pay attention, slow people on Zoom. I want attributes, not names. Attributes that describe the actions of Allah, which is the second category of attributes. Who's going to start us off? Attribute. Give me an attribute that describes the actions. Y'all know what an action is? Something that you do. The actions of Allah. Here goes Zarina again. At least she never gives up. Give me an attribute, Zarina, that describes an action.
Allah gives life after death.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. It's not outside the box, but that's good. Okay, let's start it off with that easy one. An example of an action that Allah does. Allah does give life after death. And I'm glad she put it that way. She didn't say give life. She said life after death. Hello. That makes it good, Zarina. Good job. Okay, good job. What's another example of an attribute like she just gave that describes one of Allah's actions like she just did? He gives life after death. What's another one? Oh, I thought that was an answer. Shows I can't see. What's another one? Come on, people. Can't see her screen. Let me put this up on the thing so I can read what she's writing. She said, okay, good job, Pamela. Another example of an attribute that describes Allah's actions is what Pamela said. Allah has power. He has power to do what he pleases. And I like the way she worded that. Because we talked about yesterday, Kareem Abu-Zayd gave examples of how a lot of people will take the fact that Allah has the power to do what he pleases and make up stuff. She just came out and said it. He just has the power. Power is an action. That's an action verb. Good job. He has the power to do whatever he pleases. Good job, Pamela. Good answer. Let's see what else. Also, Metro Lady is right. Here's another one. Loving. Loving is an example of an attribute that is not just a description of himself, but it's also an action. That's what Amina Fresno came up with yesterday. I was so proud of Amina Fresno because that was going to be my next question to y'all. Give me an example of an attribute that is both, that is an action and a description of himself. Loving is an example. Good job, Metro. She's good at this too. Your mama raised you well. What else? Commands. Good job. Another example of an attribute that describes an action of Allah is commands. As Brother Ahmad wrote, Allah commands whatever he wants. That's an attribute that is an action of his. He commands whatever he wants. Good job. What else? Okay, is that a name? Norto said the restore. Is that a name or is that an attribute, Norto? The fact that you put the in front of it should tell you is that a name or an attribute? That's a name. I don't want a name of Allah. I want an attribute. Or if you're going to use a name, use it in the form of an attribute. Okay. Let's see. Sabrine, you got an answer? Go ahead. Oh, you just got your hand up. Okay. All right, Zarina, go ahead. She wants to try again. Here we go.
Yeah, I might be bad at it, but I love doing this. I'm learning. Yeah, he lowers and increases a person's status.
Okay. That's a good example of an attribute of action. Allah can lower your status. Good job, Zarina. Or he can raise your status. He lowers your status when you do something bad. He raises your status when you do something good. Good answer. She finally got a winner. Thank you. See, she kept trying.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sister Shamsa, give me an example of an attribute that describes Allah's action.
I'll try again. Allah tests us in any way he wants. For example, like whether it was in our health or.
No, I just want to know an attribute.
Oh.
I don't want examples of anything. So what's your attribute?
I was saying he tests us.
Okay, great. That's great. That's all you say. That's it. That's an attribute. Exactly. Allah will test us. That's a very good attribute because that's definitely outside the box because you can we refer to Allah as being the tester? Because that's going to be my second question. Examples as to how people will take an attribute and try to make a name out of it. We cannot refer to Allah as being the tester. That's not a name that he made up of himself, but it's an attribute of his. That's a good answer, Shamsa. That's an attribute of his because he tests us all the time, but we can't call him the tester. Just like he can plot and plan, but we don't call him the plotter or the planner. Good job, Shamsa. That was your best answer. What else? Norto said, what about this, guys? What do you think of this, Serena, and the rest of y'all? Is this an answer? Norto said an example of an attribute of action. Allah prevents things from happening. Is that a great example of an attribute of action? Prevents things from happening.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, good job, Norto. That's a good one. Exactly. That's an action. And it also describes something about Allah. He does prevent things from happening. So I think you guys, let's see, what's another answer? Here's another one. Good job, Fame. She said another example would be Allah can degrade and humiliate. That means raise a person up and lower him down. Good job. Good job, though. That's an attribute too. Good job. So I think you guys got it. So you see, this book of Sheikh Kareem Abu-Zaid's, some of the wording, I wish Amina Fresno was here, because this would have been a great way of her testing. I think she got it though, because she came up with these answers yesterday. But he was kind of wordy in this chapter of the book. But he was wordy just to make sure that the reader understands the difference between an attribute of selfhood. He used the word selfhood. I would reuse a different word. I would say the essence or the nature of himself. Okay. And then there's attributes of action, which show what he does. Mashallah. I think you guys got it. So I think you guys got it.
Layla, would plans be too?
Say what?
About plans.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, but that he's the best of planners, the best of plotters, but we don't refer to him with those names. Good job. Yes, I think you guys got it. So that's what this chapter is about. To be honest, he could have made just one chapter of this. Okay, he's speaking about the different mistakes that we make, you know, when it comes to Allah's names and attributes. He's got attributes that describe himself, his essence, and he's got attributes that describe his actions. And there are some attributes that fall in the category of both, like love, like hate. None of y'all use the attribute of hate. And I every time I teach this class, I never get people, I don't know why Muslims are afraid to use the word hate, because that sure would have been my first answer. That's an attribute, because love is a part of faith and so is hate. Allah hates everything that he made haram. Whatever he made lawful, he hates it. That's why we have to be careful using the word haram, because when you use the word haram, you're saying Allah hates something. If you're going to tell me it's haram for me to have on lipstick, you're saying that Allah hates lipstick. Where's the evidence? Okay, so we have to be careful using that word haram. If you tell me that I cannot wear colors, you're saying that Allah hates colors when he's the creator of colors. For those of you who don't know, they're the angels of the throne. They are of different colors. They glorify Allah night and day in languages not even known to man. And they are of different colors. Allah loves colors. So we have to be careful using that word haram. You know, the color I have on today. What do you guys think? Just look at the way I'm dressed today. And by the way y'all see me dressed, this is how Aisha used to dress. This is how Salama dressed. What I have on today is known by the Arabic women as a shift. When y'all read the hadiths and you read about how Aisha just had on a shift, or you hear about them on that, like that one hadith the brother used from Bukhari, that Aisha and Sulaim during the Battle of Badr, Aisha had to pull up her shift. She pulled her shift up, and you could see her jewelry, her henna, and her legs, on her legs, because she was climbing over the dead bodies. This is a shift. A shift is nothing but a straight dress. It's a, let me mute her. It's, where's my moderators, just to make sure it's Yasmin and them. Yeah. A shift is what you Bantu sisters call a batu. Is that what y'all call the batu or batu? It's just a one-piece garment the women throw on. That's what they wore back in those days, shifts. I love shifts. We call it a house dress. We call it a house dress. Well, this is what I have on today, a shift. And then they would wear their khimar. The way I got my hijab on, the way I wear my hijab. This is how Aisha wore her hijab. This is how the female companions, this is how the Arabic women, and by the way, I'm half Arabic. This is how the Arabic women of Arabia wore their hijab. Allah says in the Quran, draw your hijabs over your bosom. I wear my hijabs over my bosom. This is the way they wore theirs. They did not wear burqas. Burqas is not part of the Arabic women dress. That's Turkish people. They wore khimars like what you see I have on. This is how Aisha dressed. Now, would they wear this color that I have on? What do y'all think, sisters? Those of you who follow learning about the companions from me.
Yes.
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 Now, remember, they wore dark colors only when? When did the women wear dark colors? Atiyah, that's her hadith too.
Morning.
When they were
Mourning.
mourning. Now, this may be considered a dark color. Now, is this something that Aisha or Salama or any of the female companions would wear on a regular day?
No.
What did the rest of y'all think? Because some people may think gray is dark.
I think they would wear it
Why?
because it's got color.
Is it the color or the fabric I got on? This is something that they would wear, not when they're not mourning, because of the fabric. Look at the fabric of my khimar. It's silk. So this is something that they would wear even when they were not mourning. They only wore dark colors when they were mourning. How can you tell when they would wear gray? Gray is a dark color. In fact, this is gray and black. Okay, but what makes you know that I'm not in mourning? How would they know I'm not in mourning? Number one, I have on makeup. Because as Atiyah says in her hadith, which is in Sahih Bukhari, we only wore dark colors when we were mourning, and we would never wear the makeup. They would take off their makeup. Yes, the prophet's wives wore makeup. All the female women on earth wore makeup. Women been married wearing makeup since God made Eve, not Steve. If you brothers would get out of the back trying to be Steve, then you wouldn't have a problem accepting Eve. Hello. How could you tell that the female companions were in mourning? They would remove their makeup completely, no makeup at all. And they would wear dark colors, and they would wear fabrics that were not fine. The Arabic word, as Dr. Aslam said, is fine. Fine air. This is silk. Silk is a fine fabric. So if I wore this dark color, and I got my makeup on, they know I'm not mourning. I got on makeup. I got on a silky, fine, flashy fabric. Or
Yeah, your fabric has
flowers.
brocade on it. It looks like. Yeah.
Okay, be quiet. Let me take this. That's not brocade. Or flowers. This has designs. If now if they were mourning, they wouldn't wear nothing with designs, nothing with color, no makeup at all, not even kohol. Kohol. If you read that hadith in the Arabic, kohol, whenever you guys are reading a hadith that has been translated into English that uses kohol, the Arabic means makeup. Makeup. That's your dalil. Learn how to speak Arabic. The Fusha, not the slang bang. Arabs today don't speak it. They speak slang bang. Learn classical Arabic. Okay. But anyway, yes. So this is how they would know I'm not mourning. Number one, I got on makeup. Number two, I got bling. And number three, it's a flash. It's a fabric of flash. Okay. It's not a plain fabric. Okay. And if they wanted to walk past a man, what Aisha would do sometimes, not all the time, as Dr. Dramali would even tell you. Sometimes they walk by a group of men, they do this. This is why they wore these type of kimars. And take it down. Take it down. Take it down. That's the same way I do sometimes. Because y'all know I got a fetish for people coughing and sneezing. You cough around me, you sneeze around me, I'm going to do this. And then I'll take it down after a while. Okay? This is how the prophet's wives dressed. For those of you who don't know, I don't know this. They never walked around with gloves on. They didn't know what gloves were. Gloves, the Arab women didn't wear gloves. That's not part of the Arabic dress. It's part of the Viking dress. Vikings wore gloves. European women, some women in Europe wore gloves, but that's not part of the Arabic habit. Arabic women, what they wear gloves, they live in the desert. Okay? At nighttime, Aisha and the female companions wore coats made out of wolf skin. Wolf skin. They got wolves in the desert. They killed them wolves and made coats out of them. But they didn't have no gloves. They need gloves for. Okay? And they didn't walk around with with their face covered with their little, well, you just see this, looking like some whatever. I don't know where y'all get this crap from. Y'all need to learn history. Educate yourselves. I keep telling y'all, go to a museum and look at how the women and men dressed in the 8th century. They were modest everywhere in the world back then. Even the European women were dressed and modestly they wore long, beautiful dresses and shifts too. Okay, but this is a shift. This is not even an abaya I got on. It's a batu, as y'all call it. Batus are shifts. They're not overgarments. Now, if I put on the other thing that y'all buy me with the bat wings, that's an abaya. That's an overgarment. Abaya means overgarment. So sometimes the women wore overgarments and sometimes they just wore shifts. They didn't wear overgarments all the time. Okay. And they never walked around in no burqa. That didn't exist. They would do this. Kamars, draw your veils over your bosom. And this is the best way I suggest you sisters wear your hijabs. Because a lot of y'all, you can wear your hijabs and we can see your breasts. Draw your hijabs over your bosom. That's how the prophet's wives roll. Like I'm looking. This is how they look. All right. Okay, little history for you. I'm always going to throw those female companions in here and explain them hadiths to y'all. Keep it real. Hello. Goodbye. All right. So I think you guys understand the meaning of those attributes of the different categories. Let's go on to the today's lesson. And I really like how, wait a minute, hold on. What's wrong with my computer? There it is. I'll say my computer acting silly, like it doesn't want to open. Here it is. I liked how in this next chapter, the Sheikh speaks about how to affirm. Wait a minute, let me move this over so y'all can see. There that thing is on the screen. Okay. And this next chapter, he speaks about how to affirm Allah's attributes correctly. Okay. And that's what we're going to go over today. Let me put the first PowerPoint up here. The human mind is limited and deficient in contending with the attributes of Allah in general, we're not able to approach an understanding of his divine attributes unless there's textual evidence to establish their existence. Big words, I know. What he's basically saying is what the exercise today entailed. We can't make up our own meaning of an attribute. We can't make up our own name of Allah based on an attribute. There has to be evidence, like what Pamela did in her answer. There has to be evidence like she did that Allah has power. Use that power the way Allah uses it. Don't sit there and make strength. Replace the word with strength and take it to mean something different, okay? And that's the same principle to use for other attributes that may have shape, such as Allah's hands, Allah's eyes, Allah's face. Attributes that resemble or sound like a resemblance to the human being. We have to use them the way Allah uses them and not add to it or take away from it. In other words, we have to do like the companions did, understand Allah's attributes, the attributes that he uses to describe himself. We have to use them and understand them the way the prophet and his companions did. Does everybody understand? That's the only way to not transgress the limits of Allah. What did the companions say about Allah's hands? How did the companions understand Allah's eyes to be? Did the companions say that Allah is everywhere? That's why I said that's a good example of Rome that Jamila gave us. You know, did the companions understand that attribute to mean that he's everywhere? Okay. And so to keep us on the right path and understanding them, the scholars came up with 7 questions that if you use them will help to simplify your understanding of Allah's attributes the way the companions did. As Ibn Qayyim said, being unaware of the way leading to Allah, its difficulty and purpose can cause so many problems. So they've come up with this structured method of asking yourself 7 questions. And by asking these 7 questions, they in turn will help to establish a clear path to understanding the usage of Allah's attributes the way the prophet taught his companions. Okay? And that brings us to the first question. Why? Why is it important to affirm Allah's attributes? Well, every Muslim, it's our obligation to negate the attributes that Allah negated of himself in the Quran and the Hadith. If it's an attribute that Allah didn't apply to himself, then we don't apply it either. That's why it's important for us to know those attributes and use them correctly. Okay? So we identify evidence that will relate to it. Let's take the example that Jamila gave us today when she said Allah is everywhere. What evidence from the Quran, what clear evidence from the Hadith states that the Prophet said or Allah said that he's everywhere? And you will see that there is nothing in the Quran that says Allah is physically everywhere. There is no verse there. There is no hadith that says Allah is physically everywhere. Instead, we find verses that speaks about Allah's knowledge, that Allah has knowledge of everything. But that doesn't mean that Allah is everywhere. Allah tells us that he exists above his throne. He's above his throne. That's the evidence we find as to where Allah is physically. Physically, he is above the creation. Physically, he is above the throne. So that's the evidence we go with. So again, guys, when it comes to anything in Islam, we talk about Dalil. I had a sister come in here and question me a couple weeks ago about something, and I gave her the answer, and I gave her the Dalil. She didn't know what Dalil was. She kept saying, "Give me the Dalil." I said, "I just gave it to you. Do you know what Dalil means in English?" No, she didn't know. Dalil means evidence. Dalil is an Arabic word that means evidence. In other words, prove it. Prove that what you're saying is true. And in Islam, evidence is only taken or derived from two sources. And those two sources are the Quran, and the second source is the authentic hadith. That's it. It's not a fatwa. Islam Q&A is not a source. Okay? Google is not a source. It has to be a clear, concrete verse from the Quran or a clear, concrete verse from the authentic hadith. And if there's a contradiction in understanding something, like, for example, how do we understand that Allah is not everywhere, but he has knowledge of all things? We use the understanding that the companions had. I'm not going to tell you what Imam so-and-so said. I'm going to tell you what Ibn Abbas said it means, what Ibn Masud said it means, what Ibn Umar, what Abu Bakr, what Umar, what Az-Zubair, what Sa'id al-Khudri, what Aisha, Salama, Zainab, Atika, what they say, Atika, what they say. Okay? Because that's all that matters. Because Allah says no one understands this religion better than that first generation of Muslims. So this is why it's important to affirm Allah's attributes and to affirm them correctly. Okay? This brings us to the second question. Can we affirm an attribute without negating it or making it resemble Allah's creation? I want you guys to understand, anytime we talk about the names and attributes of Allah, your personal jinn gets angry. He'd rather keep you learning Arabic rather than to learn about Allah's names and attributes, because learning about Allah's names and attributes is teaching you about Allah and bringing you closer to him, okay? So your personal jinn, when he hears you participating in classes like this, he will begin his intense insinuation, trying to get you to equate Allah's attributes to the human being. Such as, if I mention Allah's hands like I just did now, your jinn automatically has your mind wondering, does Allah's hands look like yours? Does Allah's hands look like mine? When I mention Allah's face, like I just did, immediately your jinn makes your mind ponder. He whispers into your heart to get to plant the seed in your heart so your mind can wonder, is Allah black? Is Allah white? Does he look, how does his look? Does he look Asian? Does he look African? What kind of fingers? What kind of feet? Is Allah's feet big, small? What size shoe? Okay, so we have to be careful of that. And to answer those questions, You know, these attributes, the attributes that Allah says about himself, such as his hands, his face, his fingers, his shin, those attributes are attributes that we have no knowledge of. So we don't even participate in trying to describe them. For those Muslims who do engage in that type of argument, these are the Muslims that end up leaving outside of Islam. Remember, guys, your personal jinn will invite and incite you to try to place Allah on your level or yourself on his. He'll try to convince you. I remember one day I was teaching the names of Allah, and we were talking about, I did a class after, that's when I was teaching the class on how to pray. After the Tawheed class, I went into Khushu', you know, how important it is for us to develop Khushu' or concentration during the prayer. And I remember I said, understand, try to imagine that you yourself as standing before Allah. Y'all remember when I was teaching that he's watching you and listening to everything that you say. When I did that, a brother asked, he said, but Sister Layla, I keep imagining that Allah looks like my father. I imagine him as my father. I mean, he said, my jinn makes me imagine that my father is standing in front of me. No, you don't want to do that. Because you don't try to figure out, when we say imagine that you are standing in front of Allah, we mean in his presence. And I had to tell the brother, imagine that you are standing before a great light. That's all, because Allah is light. Imagine that you are standing the way we will be on a day of judgment. We will be standing in the presence of Allah. We will see nothing but light, this big light, this bright light. So I had to tell that brother, stop thinking about your father and your grandfather. No, you don't liken Allah to his creation. That's your jinn. Imagine that you are standing in the presence of a great, powerful light. That's it. Like this background of blue is nothing but light. That's it. Don't try to figure out how Allah looks, because he was trying to figure out how Allah looks. We don't do that. Don't liken him to his creation, but that comes from your personal jinn. So to escape the doubts and whispers produced by our jinn, you know, we have to fight that. We have to recall the fundamentals that we've talked about here about Allah's names, how Allah is nothing like his creation, nor is his creation anything like him. Okay? And again, everything must be based on evidence from the Quran and the authentic hadith. If it's not backed up by a verse from the Quran or a clear hadith, then we leave it. If there's no hadith describing, there is a hadith where the prophet said Allah has two right hands, then you accept it. You don't sit there and try to figure out how those two right hands look. Just accept that he has two right hands. Because if you don't, you'll end up being just like the Jews and Christians. You'll be picking and choosing what parts of the book to believe in and what parts not to believe in. As Allah himself says, in the interpretation, the meaning, do you believe in one part of the book and disbelieve in another? You believe that Allah has hands, but you disbelieve that both of his hands are right hands? Okay, so, you know, we have to fight Shaitan, our personal jinn, this way. Okay? And again, avoid resembling Allah to his creation and vice versa. Okay? Think of the following verses of the Quran. When you get thoughts to try to liken Allah to his creation, think about how Allah tells us in the interpretation, the meaning, how there is nothing like Allah. He's the all-seeing, the all-knowing. So when you get these thoughts to try to imagine Allah as being looking like your father, think about how there is nothing like Allah. And also how Allah says that he is eternal. He does not begat, nor is he begotten. There is no one or nothing equivalent to him. Think about those two verses, and that'll help to refute you, your personal jinn who's trying to get you to liken Allah to yourself or to another of his creation. Okay? If your jinn is trying to get you to liken Allah to an animal, think about how an animal is nothing, just like animals are nothing like us. How can we equate Allah to being like us or an animal? So this is something that we have to combat with our personal jinn. And the third thing, when it comes to an attribute of Allah, don't try to personally interpret it to mean what you want it to mean, because this is another way that your personal jinn will mislead you. He'll have you read the verses that Allah uses in the Quran to describe himself and get you to interpret it to mean what you want it to mean. We can't do that. Okay? And finally, avoid corrupt misinterpretation, because this is innovation. When you misinterpret Allah's attributes, you're not only innovating in the religion, but you're also changing the religion. You're also invalidating your belief in Allah. So you don't want to do that. As Allah says in the Quran, there are those amongst the Jews who pervert the original meanings of the words. They play with their tongues to form false concepts in regards to the religion, to mean that we hear and we disobey. You don't want to be like the Jews. You don't want to take the words of Allah and misinterpret them or pervert the meanings of them to something else. So that, in a nutshell, summarizes those next 5 pages of what Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid was saying in this wonderful book of his. Okay? In other words, stick to the what's written in the Quran and the authentic hadith about Allah and his attributes. Don't add to them. Don't take away from them. Don't pervert the meaning of them. Don't try to figure it out on your own. Just accept what he says. He's got 2 right hands. He's got 2 right hands. He loves and he hates. A lot of Muslims have a problem with hate. They think hate is a bad thing. It's not. Allah tells us he hates. He hates everything that he made haram. And the thing he hates the most is for us to speak about him or this religion without knowledge. So we accept that he hates. His hatred is not like ours, just like his love is not like ours, but they're still attributes of his. So we accept what he says. We don't add to it. We don't take away from it. We don't try to figure it out. We accept it, keep it moving, and move on. Okay? All right, so we're going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you a quiz like I did today just to cover this, and then we'll move on to the next few pages of this wonderful book. Are there any questions? I hope I made it clear to everyone. Any questions about any of this? And just to let everybody know, don't forget that I have the Islam Q&A at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You'll be able to call in or come here on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and ask your questions about Islam. And inshallah, I'll answer you. If I can't give you an answer, then I'll have Sheikh Morsi or Sheikh Atlee on the phone to answer. Okay, any questions about any of this? Are we good? Everybody understands? Did I explain it and break down that part of the book? Pages 1. This was pages 1 This was pages 171 to 175. 171 to 175. That was today's explanation. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Okay, guys, I'm going to close out for right now because I'm going to log back in at 9 for the Islam Q&A. If you got Muslim friends with questions, y'all need to hit your social platform, hit your social media, and let them know they can come here live and ask their questions about Islam. And I will give them the answers based on Quran and evidence like I do with everything. I don't answer from my own opinion, just like I'm not teaching my own opinion. Everything will be backed up with clear evidence like I'm doing when I tell y'all about the prophet's wives. Hello, this is how they look, just like Layla. I got on a shift and I got on my regular key bar. If somebody was to come in here that I thought was trying to flirt with me, I'd do this. And that'll probably make them flirt more. When I cover my face, the men flirt more. Covering the face don't hide nobody's beauty. So some people. Covering the face accentuates a lot of people's beauty like mine. It just makes me look even more attractive to men. That's why I don't cover my face. The last husband I was married to, the old man, he told me to cover my face one day. So I did this. And he told me, take it off. He said, show your face. He said, some women look good with their faces covered. So you just show it. So I don't cover mine. Unless somebody cough around me, I will then. You cough and sneeze, I'm going to cover it then. I like the COVID. I like the fact that we wear masks now. When I go out the house, I put on my mask. My mask be like that too. All right. Okay, so I'm going to log back in, guys, inshallah. Please, this will give y'all a hour or so to let your friends write the number down. That's the phone number to the website. They can call in their questions too if they want, and share it on your Facebook page, your YouTube channels, your Twitter, that they can join tonight at 9 p.m. to ask Sister Layla, live their questions about Islam. So I'm going to log out now and I'll log back in at 10. Y'all see I did the notify you. If y'all look on YouTube, I put the thing to letting y'all know the upcoming events. Did y'all see that? Did the YouTube people see the upcoming events that I made for the YouTube channel? I learned how to do that. I don't know how to make it work, but
I was watching this today's khutbah too on YouTube. It was nice.
Oh yeah, we had some good khutbah. Sheikh Atli's khutbah was the bomb. So was y'all see Dr. Jamali's?
Yep, and Abu's name, whatever his name
His
is.
khutbah was good. Then I played Abu Usama the rest of the
Yeah, he did it good for the children.
yeah.
The little boy, all of them were good, but he really did it good.
Yeah, Abu Usama. Yeah, I had Sheikh Atli, Dr. Jamali, and Abu Usama's. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I like Sheikh Atli too.
Yeah, his was really good too. He did a good. I'm glad he did it because I was hoping he wouldn't have somebody else doing it. Because his last khutbahs, he had other people speaking, and I don't like the way they speak. I like to hear his. He's always given great khutbahs. Yeah. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna log. Huh?
We always I always share like your classes, especially with family members and friends and everybody I come across. But somehow, they rather go listen to Mufti or somebody else than come to your class and learn live. And I figured simply because they don't want to, hear something they don't want to hear, or
right. That's why people rather get lost listening to that stuff that don't apply to them. my dawah is directed right at you, you know, at everybody. I'm going to speak about what the people need to hear, not what they want to hear. So yeah, so if they ain't ready for the truth, they don't want to listen to me, because they listen to me, it's going to, everything is going to hit them. Akida, because all of us, that's what we all need to be focused on, is Akida. And my dawah was always Akida. And nobody wants to hear that, because the people are laxed in their belief system. They rather sit around and laugh and listen to jokes that people make and have people talk about stuff, stories and stuff that don't even help apply to them. Yeah, but so of course they don't want.
One of your lecture about the, you know, celebrating birthdays, I shared it with a lot of people. Like I literally sent them the YouTube link to listen to it. And then one sister was like, girl, bye. I was like, subhanallah. Because she's like inviting me to her birthday and I'm here explaining to her, you know, why we're not doing it and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I sent her your link and she got like mad and she was like, girl, bye. I was like,
so yeah, we know they don't want to hear the truth. We living in those days. The prophet said the truth will appear to be falsehood and falsehood will appear to be truth. People don't want to hear it, you know. But they like coming in here asking their questions, though. That's what gets me. So make sure y'all share that. That's tonight, because I get a lot of people with these questions, though. A lot of people like these questions and these questions and answers. So, I got this. Let me put this right here. I can't forget that I got another thing to get to. Yeah, so that's tonight at 9. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to log out on social media. I'll be back logging in at 9 o'clock, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. And how do I do this?